Hey everybody, Pete here. Thanks for coming by and checking out my video. And today I wanted to talk to you about a deck that sparked my way to Legendary. Alright, sorry about that. I call it SLOP. So I created SLOP when somebody by the name of Best Man Ever suggested that I make a Sparky deck for him in the comment section of my Boomyard deck guide. So Sparky has lost some love in recent metas, but I think I found the deck to bring him back to the place where grass is oh so green, Legendary Arena. So before we get into playing SLOP, let's break it down card by card. Again, I want to let you know that I break down my decks by siloing the cards into two categories. You have staples and utility cards. These staple cards will not be changed out. They are a mainstay of the deck and pivotal to its effectiveness. And the utility cards can be rotated out to fit your meta. Sparky. My Sparky is at level 2. It can be level 1. I don't really know if there's that big of a difference between level 1 and level 2 Sparky. But you typically place it behind your towers. And you let it run out. Work up the left or right hand side as you build your elixir back up. Or you place it at the bridge during the late game when you're cycling through your deck. So I would just like to come out and say that I feel absolutely gross for playing Sparky. Sparky is such a Hail Mary minion that you almost want to laugh when it actually connects. It's just slow, it's awkward, but my God, when it's on, it is destructive. So I've usually only seen Sparky played one way. You drop her behind your tower, you throw a tank in front of her, and you just kind of pray that your opponent doesn't have the resources to stop a blast or two. But I designed this deck to make Sparky a little bit more flexible. So here are some of the ways that I use Sparky. So the first way is that I use Sparky to set up my Royal Giant Goblin Barrel combo, which I'll get into later. So I will drop Sparky behind my tower to either the left or right lane and wait for my elixir to recover, and my opponent will start to gather minions and towers to try and stop Sparky. And once I've seen my opponent has committed to one side, then I'll drop Royal Giant, then I'll drop Goblin Barrel on the other side. And you kind of have to watch your opponent scramble to stop both. The second time I'll use Sparky is after my Royal Giant Goblin Barrel combo. So like the scenario I just mentioned, once I'm in double elixir mode, I will watch my opponent burn up resources trying to stop Royal Giant and Goblin Barrel on one side of the map. Then I'll drop Sparky on the other side, usually going in unmolested for a couple hits on the tower. And the third way that I use Sparky is that I'll drop Sparky behind my Royal Giant and Goblin Barrel combo. So if you really want to watch your opponents freak out and get a lot of crying and angry emojis, then you drop all three on the same side. And I usually get to this point late in the game after I've been rotating sides with Sparky and the Royal Giant Goblin Barrel combo. The next card we have is the Royal Giant. Now this is a level 10 common, and I usually place this on the left or right bridge, or you can just use it as a way to soak up damage from an enemy push. And this is a great pressure card. You know, your opponent typically has to use a good amount of resources to eliminate Royal Giant. You know, and Royal Giant can be used on his own, but I found that it's best to use in tandem with Goblin Barrel. So you drop you drop Royal Giant, you wait for their tower to engage Royal Giant, then you drop Goblin Barrel on that same tower, and your goblins get in a lot of free hits. So it's best to protect your Royal Giant, though, with arrows or zap from air minions. And right now the meta is pretty light on single target removers like Mini P.E.K.K.A, Inferno Tower, Inferno Dragon, etc. So Royal Giant is able to get in some really good damaging hits. The next one we have is the Goblin Barrel. My Goblin Barrel is at level 4, and the placement for this is your opponent's tower, and it can be used on defense in a pinch. So the second piece of the uber effective Royal Giant Goblin Barrel combo, I typically only use Goblin Barrel in tandem with Royal Giant. But I will actually use Goblin Barrel at the start of a match if I need to cycle through my deck if I have no viable defensive options. Most players seem to target the middle of their opponent's tower when they use Goblin Barrel in order to get an even distribution of goblins, but it's also important to remember and practice positioning your Goblin Barrels depending on where your opponent is dropping their defense. And don't worry about your goblins getting zapped. Your opponent has to choose whether to zap your goblins or your Sparky. So make them burn zap one way or the other. It's a win-win for you. So the utility cards, we have a level 7 wizard. Some of the alternatives are Ice Wizard, Musketeer, Mini P.E.K.K.A, and Minion Horde. And the placement for this card is really anywhere on defense. And I like Wizard. It's one of those cards, it plays like an epic or a legendary, but it's priced as a rare. So Wizard has great survivability. It survives almost all removal spells of equal level. Besides rocket and lightning, and can do massive amounts of damage if left unattended. So Wizard's Fireball does splash damage to group minions and decent damage against single minions. But it does get outclassed by strong cards like Mini P.E.K.K.A, Musketeer, Knight, Prince, etc. So if your opponent is aerial focused, this card can absolutely dominate by itself. But if not, you can run into some problems. So where Wizard really gets into trouble is the fact that his rate of fire has slowed. So when you deploy him onto your map, you need to make sure that you're maximizing your spacing, or you'll just be wasting 5 very costly elixir. The next card I want to talk about is Barbarians, which is a level 10 common. The alternatives for this card are Minion Horde and Baby Dragon, and this card can really be placed anywhere. Barbarians is a brilliant vanilla common card that can be used in a plethora of ways, either as a counter push, as a punish to tanks in cards like Hog Rider, or you can use it as a meat shield for your Royal Giant and Sparky cards. And it has absolutely amazing stats for 5 elixir. The card is extremely flexible, and it doesn't die to removal outside of Rocket, and it's one of the most balanced and versatile cards in the game. But that said, it's not always a shoo-in. If the current meta is on the ground, this card is absolutely for you. But if the meta is in the air, you kind of have to look elsewhere. It's also noted this card is really weak against Bomber, Bomb Tower, and cards like a high-level Witch. Next card I want to talk about is Skeleton Army. It's a level 4 epic card, and some of the alternatives are Ice Wizard, Bomber, Guards, and Mini P.E.K.K.A. It's also best used in front of cards like Hog Rider, Royal Giant, and Giant. Since they don't target minions, your Skeleton Army can just flail away without any worry. You do need to know that this card is incredibly weak against Splash, but is an absolute godsend against everything else. The last 2 cards I'm going to talk about are Arrows and Zap. First, with Arrows, it's at level 10, and the alternatives are Zap, Fireball, and Log. The location for this, like I said in previous videos, wherever the princess is, drop your arrows. It's also important to use on Minion Horde, Skeleton Army, and other small bunches of minions. And Zap is also at level 10, and some of the alternatives are Skeletons, Ice Spirit, Log, Fireball, or Minions. And the location for this is any large grouping of weak minions, or to be used as a disruptor for enemies with long startup animation. So final thoughts on this deck. It's different. I've never made a Sparky deck before, and I'm pretty proud of this one. It's pretty effective. It will get you to Legendary. You just have to play it and practice with it. It's a lot of fun. It's different, and it's definitely open to your interpretation. And I'm interested to see how you guys like the deck. So keep checking in as I plan to contribute more content onto my YouTube page. And make sure that you like and subscribe, follow me on Twitter, or shoot me a message on my Gmail account. All right, guys, have a good one.